This podcast is for Richard Wright's short story, The Man Who Was Almost a Man. It can be found on page 363 of E-Fictions. The only difficulty in the beginning of the story is having to distinguish between what is describing the plot and what is giving us Joe's thoughts and telling us what he's thinking. And typically this is indicated with italics or maybe quotation marks or something, but nothing indicates it here, except for the fact that it is in Dave's very heavy dialect. And so it shifts back and forth between telling the story and being in Dave's head, but I think most readers can figure that out pretty easily. And we see from the very start of the story that Joe's view of himself as being a man, or at least almost a man, is very different than what others seem to think of him in the story. He is characterized indirectly by his thoughts, his actions, and how others seem to treat him. They treat him like a boy and treat him like he can't make his own decisions because he really can't. And so it seems like his only interest, his only value is to get a hold of a gun, and that will make him a man. And obviously we talked in class about some of the different ways that people confuse adulthood or manhood with different actions or ownership of different things, and this is obviously one of them, without a doubt, weapons. And he goes to buy the gun, and I think this is something important. In paragraph 11, Joe, the man who sells him the gun, is described as having a greasy white face. And we kind of see here how he does very little for his community by, and it might be a comment on capitalism, selling the gun to Dave simply because he can profit from it. There's no question in his mind that this is the right thing to do. And as long as he can make a profit off of it, that's all he cares about. So he sells Dave the gun, or tells him that he would sell it to him. So in the next few pages, we see how Dave is able to manipulate his mother. His father seems to be relatively absent from the story. Neither of them seem to give him any kind of real guidance. They don't seem to be bad parents. They're there, but they don't seem to give him any particularly good advice or to figure out a way to shift his focus onto something else. And he is able to manipulate his mother and eventually trick her. So he gets the gun and accidentally ends up shooting Jenny, the mule, and it's almost a comical section where he is trying to, it's sad but comical, stuff the hole in the mule from his gun with dirt and different things. And obviously then he has to go back and face the owner of the mule, Mr. Hawkins, as well as the other men in town. And what we have to see is that this is the point where he has the opportunity to be a man. And we talked about this in class as to what that means. Accept responsibility for actions and basically do what he can to fix the situation. Can't turn back time, can't get out of it anyway, but to just take responsibility. And we see that he fails miserably. He comes up with excuses. He cries. He says he didn't mean to do it. And then at the very end of the story, rather than facing basically the responsibility, he decides to leave. And the very last paragraph of the story, I think, is what's important there, where we see him impatiently waiting for this train, even calling it a slow poke as it comes along, and he can't even just wait another minute before he can hop on it and escape his environment, escape his responsibility, and to go find somewhere where people will treat him better and treat him like a man. And I think the first time a lot of people read this story, they think that that's a possibility for him, or that he will become a man by going off and finding a new environment. But right behind him, the real possibility of him becoming a man was missed. And as I mentioned in class, this is a story with a pretty moral approach to it, trying to teach a lesson, trying to teach something and instruct the reader. That's all. Thanks for listening.